Good morning, good morning. It is a bank holiday Monday here in the UK, and I never know on bank holiday Monday whether we're going to have less people or more people coming to our live session. So welcome to Middle Earth Readings. My name's Maggie Rose Cunningham. I am your host, and we're going to be looking at the planetary movements through the runic wheel this week. And for those of you who are here joining me live, please do share your rune of the week, and we can look at doing a mini reading for you on what that rune might be gifting you, what wisdom it might be asking you to look into. So there are two movements this week, which I thought, it'll be a short one, but there is a lot that wants to be said during the course of today. So we shall see how we go. We had quite a long session last week because there were so many people here. So I will start off just by going through our planetary movements, then we'll talk about the theme that's coming up. Please do post to say hello, and we'll carry on from there. So we have got two movements, as I said. We have got, we're moving into Skadi's Hall in 2 days' time, so on the 20th. So Skadi's Hall is the equivalent of Taurus. So if you are a Taurian, if you know that you're a Taurian, then Skadi is your patron. And she is a goddess of great independence. I love her. She's she's my patron because I'm a Taurian, but I look at it in a slightly different way. And she brings a real sense of independence. She builds on the theme of sovereignty that we've been working on. We have soon as Chariot in Manaz, and soon as Chariot finishes off its cycle. It has 1 week where it's in Skadi's Hall, and so she brings that sense of real sovereign independence to people who have their sun rune in Manaz. And that's one of the things that I find really interesting through looking at your patron deities and looking at the runes, is that Skadi's Hall spans 3 sun runes. So you could have your sun rune in Manaz for a week, you could have your sun rune in Inguz, and that's 2 weeks. So anyone, if your sun rune is in Inguz, Skadi is a wonderful patron to work with. And then sun rune in Inguz for 1 week as well. So that's why it's important to know your runes and know when they're calculated, and because they overlap in that way, which can be quite fun then to look at. Okay, how does Skadi show up differently for those of us who are Manaz as opposed to those of us who are Inguz? That also means that if you know any of your other planets, then if you have Manaz, Inguz, or Inguz in your chart, Skadi may be a patron for you. Certainly if you're in Inguz, she will be. So she's bringing us this fierce energy of independence. Her story is, imagine, for those of you who, I know a lot of people know the Greek and the Roman quite well, so imagine a titaness, one of the older deities, coming along, and she goes up to Zeus. She comes up and she climbs up to the heavens and she said, "You killed my father! I will have recompense." And you can imagine what Zeus would do, no? Well, it wouldn't be pretty, would it? But the Norse is different because there are laws and codes to abide by, and because the giants and the Aesir, although they are in opposition to each other, there are partnerships across. And so Skadi crosses the Bifrost Bridge, and she goes to the great halls of the gods, and she stands in front of Odin and all of the other gods, and she said, "You murdered my father and you will pay." And they're a bit frightened of her. Not only are they a bit frightened of her, she has the law on her side. And so because of that, not only does she get her father's eye set in the sky as stars, but she also gets to marry one of the gods, and she marries Njord, the great god of the sea. And because Skadi is independent and forthright in her, the way that she thinks about things, she's not really satisfied with the marriage to Njord. It doesn't really float her boat. They don't get on that well. But she remains married to him, at least in title. She goes back to her mountains, and she goes back to her lover Ul, the winter god, and yet she keeps her seat at the table with the gods, and she remains a member of the Aesir. So she has independence, and she also has sovereignty, this idea of sovereignty, which again we were looking at in the context of Manaz. So we're moving into Skadi's Hall on the 20th, so you need a little bit of help with following your own path, standing up to things that you don't like, being an outsider and being okay with it. Then Skadi is your giantess to work with. And then we have Odin's chariot moving into Inguz on the 23rd. So he's in Lagus at the moment, this sort of watery energy of discovery and waiting and flow and, you know, what's coming, you know. And then Inguz is the seed. And so what Odin is saying, you know, with if you imagine like Skadi, she's sort of, you know, she's got that independence. What Odin is saying is every seed needs someone to tend it. So he's asking you the question, what's the seed, or what are the seeds that you are here to tend? And not necessarily the ones that at this particular moment in time you're thinking, I want to do this or I want to do that, but more a bigger picture. You might think about it as purpose, for example, or contribution, but he is asking you that question. He's saying, you know, what are you tending? And he's reminding you that sovereignty and heroism are not always big flashy things where, you know, we see when we go, wow, that person's amazing. With the changes that we might be bringing into the world, or the thing that we're supposed to do could be a quiet thing where we are tending that seed and we get it through those early days until it's strong enough to stand by itself. And, you know, I may not know the people, you know, who tended to the trees outside of my window, but I know that at some point somebody did, at least in terms of deciding that they weren't going to cut them down, you know, that they were going to keep them there and tend to them. And I can see, you know, that actually, yeah, there are, they were cut last year and they looked a bit sad, but now they're looking healthy and wonderful and fantastic. And I don't know who those people are, because my garden looks out over a cemetery, so I can just see all of the trees there. But that tending is being done. So what is yours to tend is a question that Odin is asking us about. Now, in amongst all of that, I said to you that it was slightly longer than I was anticipating. We're going to be looking at a theme, but first of all, I can see, hello, we've got lots of people there. Lovely to see you all. Suzanne and Cheryl and Marie and Chen and Esther and Lisa and Diane and Darren and Felicity and Shelley. I'm sure I'm going to miss other people off at this point, but lovely to see you all, and it's great to see that you're all sharing your runes. We will get to them shortly, and Suzanne, you're carrying a rune for Erica as well. Thank you very much. So the theme that has come is very much about thinking into the new paradigm, and I've talked about this many times before, this idea that Perthro, the rune of new beginnings and mystery and the flow of weird, came with Hellas Chariot in 2020 and said things are going to be shaken up, you know, things are going to be different around here. And I think that there was that was contributing to an energy that was already in place. And for me, and this is my personal truth, this isn't the truth, it's my personal truth, I feel as if there has been a long period of time in human history where we have been following let's call it like a masculine paradigm that has ended up containing a lot of conditioned masculine energy. So not necessarily authentic, raw, true, powerful masculine energy, but more of the sort of armor and the fear and the anger and the higher, you know, the sort of hierarchies that are destructive, maybe like a destructive masculine then starts to come, because it's been there for such a long time. And that the feminine has been slowly coming in to say, you know, we need change. That sort of feminine paradigm has started to come in and is bringing, you know, as the masculine was conditioned, so the feminine was conditioned as well. You know, we could talk about that, you know, the idea of like the angel in the house, for example, from sort of Victorian times was, you know, not a healthy version of the feminine either, so we had unhealthy versions of both, but perhaps led more by the masculine at that time. And that it's at this point the feminine, the raw, you know, authentic feminine energies, the earth magics and those sorts of things coming through and saying, you know, I'm here to make that change. For those of you who are working in the inner circle, you know that when we do the story sessions, all of the stories of the wounded gods through the course of this year are told, at least so far, through the eyes of the divine feminine. And they are, you know, they're very beautiful stories. There isn't anger towards the divine masculine at all. It's almost like the two of them are saying, you know, the divine feminine is coming first and saying, you know, how do we reshape and bring something more true and more, well, just more survivable, really, I suppose, at the end of the day, you know, when you think about human beings at least. And so that for me is an energy that's happening. And what I was given in thinking about this and thinking about the runes this week was an idea of two triangles. There is a triangle that is a triangle that is all about conditioning. It's all about education, and not education in the terms of sort of a thirst for knowledge, but education in the terms of teaching our young people how the world operates and making sure that they fit in that type of conditioning. What we're allowed to believe, what we're not allowed to believe, what's expected from us, what's not expected from us, and there's a lot of that going on. And then in that triangle we also have then separation, the idea that we need to be separate from each other, and we have to, these are my achievements, therefore they can't be your achievements as well. This is who I am, therefore it can't be who you are. It's all about difference. Not in the sense of diversity, of celebrating diversity, but in terms of sort of otherness. There is an othering and a separation. And then codependence is the other one. We feel safer when we are codependent. When we feel this sense of like need for somebody else, and it's reciprocated, but in an unhealthy way. I'm thinking, almost about things like the nuclear, the way in which we manage the nuclear powers is sort of the way codependent. Well, I've got this big missile that if I hit that, and then everyone would die, but that's okay because you've got this one as well, and therefore you would die, and therefore we are held together in fear of each other. That means that nothing bad will happen. So it's a strategy. It's a strategy of codependency. So we've got that triangle on one side. And then the other triangle that I was given, so I share with you, again, I'm not suggesting it's truth, I'm just suggesting it's food for thought for you to think about, is that instead of conditioning, we have nature. What is our nature? And I'm not saying here that we should just all like run wild and be crazy and it's all of those. It's not as simple as that, and we'll come on to that with the second two themes. But moving back into nature and looking at our true natures, and I'll give you an example in a minute to sort of describe this. But this idea of earth magic's coming back in, and of us being allowed to reveal our true natures to each other. The sense of vulnerability and authenticity comes through so strongly as being important. To be able to reveal our true selves to each other, as well as to recognize ourselves as being part of nature, not governing nature, not in charge of nature, but being part of nature is what I'm feeling very strongly. And that partners in its triangle with, instead of separation, we have connection. I am connected to nature, I'm connected to you. We operate collaboratively through the web, and this sense of deep connection instead of deep separation, that there is always a bridge that I can cross to connect with you. And then finally we have sovereignty, which brings us back to the theme that I was discussing with Skadi, and as soon as Chariot and Manas as well, this idea of sovereignty as being, instead of codependence, we have the idea that we can each stand in our own sovereignty and respect the other deeply. One of the things I really like about the northern tradition is that Odin and Frigg share the throne. Now when Odin's away, Frigg is sitting on the throne. Now there is no Odin is totally in charge and Frigg is there supporting him. They are sovereign. And if we were able to get to that point where we were able to say, this is not codependency, this is sovereignty and co-creation, we would have that different triangle of nature and connection and sovereignty coming together. So that was my little preamble to what's present for me in terms of the energies of the runes and how they're coming through. Now, the other thing I suppose to say that I didn't mention in the feminine paradigm is that yes, we've got that Perthra, we've got the Hela's Chariot in Perthra coming through, but we also have quite a lot of Bacano energy there as well. So that's why I'm feeling very strongly into the partnership between Bacano, the spring, where we are right now, new beginnings emerging through at this point, and then we have Inguz, the seed, within the soil, partnership of the divine feminine, this Bacano energy, and the masculine coming through with the Inguz rune as well, and the Manas rune. that's all integrating together. So I do feel a lot of sort of hope and optimism, and I think that we are being asked to reach into our own hope and our own optimism at this point, and to take our stand and to be our sovereign selves. And I said I'd give you an example before we go on to the runes, and this is something that's quite new for me, but I'm finding it really interesting. So I don't know if any of you have ever done the Languages of Love questionnaire. So you can look online, and if you just look up Languages of Love, and there's 5 different languages in it, tells you about the languages of love that are most important to you, and it's very useful for things like, if you do it and your partner does it, or you do it and your mate does it, you can realise that sometimes there is loving connection. It's just that your language of love is different to somebody else's, which is why it's useful to know your own language of love. And over the years, I've done this a number of times, because I've been on various retreats and things where they say, go and do your language of love, so I've gone to do it. And I've always consistently come out as words of affirmation being my language of love. I give lots of words of affirmation. I'm a wordy person. I tend to do that, and that made sense to me. But it's only in recent weeks, where I've just finished a 2-year-long piece of training, supporting myself in my sovereignty, my sovereign power, and connecting with my sovereign power. And one of the things that we do is embodiment work, a lot of embodiment work. And I came to realise that actually physical touch is far more powerful for me as a language of love than ever comes out on my scores. And I've realised that is conditioning, because in my family and in society in general, physical touch was seen to be something that happened between married partners. That's where it happens, over there. No, not really anywhere else. My friends had to teach me how to hug when I was an older teenager, because they were like, wow, it's like hugging a penguin hugging you, because I was sort of have my arms out like this. And I was taught to hug. But I realised that for people who are energetically sensitive, intuitive, intelligent, aware of what's happening with their energy bodies, aware of the impact that they may have on others, the language of love is incredibly important, because we're sensitive to it. So not only was the physical touch really important to me, but when it wasn't reciprocated, it felt very painful to me. And equally, as I reached out to find to be with people, even not like physically touching, but by merging like auras or energy bodies, as I realise now, as a child, I would be doing that, and I would feel intense distress if another child was in distress. Intense sadness if another child was sad, through this merging of our energy fields. And so physical touch and intimacy became really challenging for me, and I became afraid of it for that reason. And so I think it's worth bearing that in mind, that the Language of Love questionnaire can tell you where you are in the moment, but it also gives you some food for thought. And I realised that although, words, they are, it is one of my gifts. There's a reason why Odin is, my sort of personal patron for most of the work that I do. But the language of love that I receive, that is more powerful for me, is physical touch. It's simply that because I had such a difficult relationship with physical touch, because I needed to learn discernment and who I was going to allow into my energy space and who I wasn't, and words of affirmation became the second best thing. I'm trying to sort of fill my love bucket with words of affirmation, whereas physical touch does that for me so powerfully. So I shared that with you as a sense of looking at conditioning and nature, of recognising that, looking at separation and codependence and sovereignty and connection, and thinking about what do you need in order to be in powerful, sovereign and natural, in harmony with your own being, connection with somebody else, and what might you be doing to fulfill that requirement in a way that is conditioned, or that promotes separation or codependence, because that's what we've been taught to do. So a bit of a long one, but I hope that it's helpful for you, and I felt very strongly the need to share it there. So let's have a look at your runes. So Suzanne got in there first. Good morning, Suzanne. You have Inguz. So I'm actually just going to shift my energy a bit there, because I've got into the thinking about conditioning and separation and merging energy fields, and Largus is my sun rune, which, so it's not surprising to me that, you know, Largus is the rune of water. It goes wherever it wants to go. It gets what's the word I'm looking for? Polluted is the wrong word. That's not what I mean, but it takes on the energy of whatever is around it. So I just want to make sure that I'm doing a reading for you and not for me in that sense. So I can really feel that Inguz energy calling for the Largus. And instinctively what's coming to my mind, Susanna, is partially because I know a little bit about things like your human design and stuff, so forgive me if it's you know, that's coming up. But it's that sense of looking at the projects that you're doing, like with other people, where they've invited you in, recognizing that they're holding the seed, you know, that they're holding that seed and they're tending it, but your Largus energy is the essential life-giving force behind that with the water. And it's talking about, again, we were talking about discernment, and it's almost sort of perhaps starting to use that idea of the Inguz seed to help you to decide, you know, what do I want to feed, what do I want to give my Largus energy to, and what do I not. So you could actually use the shape of the Inguz rune, almost, you could draw it, you know, in your mind, like over a person, if you think, oh, I might want to work with this person, or, you know, in front of a project idea that you've got, you know, that works for me. Just to check, you know, this is where my energy is being called. But broadly speaking, with Odin's chariot in Inguz, and we're moving on sort of soon as chariot into Inguz, it is that sense of recognizing that the person who tends, you know, with that, you know, who feeds, and with the Largus energy is just as important as the person who plants the seed in the first place or puts it there. So it's looking at that partnership between Largus and Inguz, which comes through. Whereas Erica, you have Kinaz. We have much more with a fiery energy of Kinaz, the torch, enlightenment coming through. Oh, I can feel Skadi's energy more strongly for that one. It's almost that sense of you, I'm seeing you sort of in a, you know, metaphorically speaking, in a sort of darkened corridor with your torch held high, going somewhere as an adventuress is what I'm seeing, discovering things that have been forgotten, and that you are trailblazing back into that space. And I think that does connect to the Inguz energy again. So this is about long-term projects again, and thinking about what would I do with that Inguz energy, what seeds am I sowing right now, and recognizing yourself as being the trailblazer, you know, the torchbearer, going into those spaces that they do feel to me ancestral. And it's that recognition that when you do that, you bring the torch, you know, but equally you bring your own energy too. So it's not just a question of lighting up the old ways, it's then saying, what am I going to do with this? You know? And how am I going to contribute to that, using my Kinaz energy with as the shaping and manifesting and changing and co-creating. But the first step is the torch. So there's some form of discovery or learning that's needed there. Cheryl, hi Cheryl, you have got Gibo for this week. I never get Gibo. A couple of people have said that they've got runes that they never get. I think that there is a real sense of, excuse me a moment, a real sense of new beginnings that's come through since we had the half month of Bacano and sort of spring equinox, and then we've had the beautiful full moon that's come as well. And I do feel as if there is a shift and a change, and that we can embrace those new beginnings. So these runes that you're getting may well signify either a shift in your energy or your relationship with the world, or an opening up to something new, to new possibilities for the future. So I would look at the Gibo rune there. And Gibo is all about balance, you know. It's going to work really nicely with the Manaz rune and that sense of sovereignty. There's something there that I'm looking for, Cheryl. I'm finding my way into for you. I think maybe there's a bit of retrospective work to do there. If there's anything that's coming up for you strongly around particular relationships or places, it could be family relationships, it could be partnerships of any sort, that feels either challenging or unfinished at this point, you can use the Giba rune to say, okay, what I need to do at this point is a review of what I received and what I gave. Now, what is it that I received and what is it that I gave, and is that in balance? And if it's not in balance, it's not necessarily about going, right, I immediately have to go and shower that other person with gifts, or I need to go back and I need to, say, I need more gifts from you. It's more an acknowledgement, it's a recognition, it's saying, in my sovereign power, I sit here and I note and I recognise that I have given, I've given sufficiently, or I have received. And it's just that truth, it's acknowledging where that is, because that's, standing in your sovereign power is so much about sort of taking responsibility and acknowledging the truth. It's not necessarily about taking action and saying, I need to fix anything from the past. That way often lies madness. It's much more about saying, I'm going to take stock. And again, I don't think it's about taking stock to necessarily change anything that you need to do for the future. It's simply a moment of standing in sovereign power there. Marie, you have Urus. Excuse me again. Urus. Well, I know that you're a healer, Marie. And again, I feel as if your Urus rune is longing to connect with the Inguz rune and saying, what are you sowing at this point? There is also, I think, something there about the partnership with the masculine for you. If you think about the Bacano rune, and I'm seeing you as being very comfortable in that Bacano space, and what I'm envisaging is this beautiful Bacano landscape with the spring flowers and the birch trees and the waters and the deep caves, and then Inguz is saying, okay, but what's coming new? And then the Uruz energy is coming in with the sort of the aurochs. Imagine these aurochs, these mighty horns, and it's sort of saying, recognize that part of yourself as well, and then it might feel a little bit threatening. The aurochs is going to come along and it's going to rip all of the bark off the birch trees and it's going to trample everything, but it's necessary, and trusting it, and recognizing that the Uruz energy in this point of, I'm not speaking properly, in this moment, representing the masculine. It's not that it always represents the masculine, but it can be quite masculine rune. That it also represents what's around you, that's embodying masculine energy that might be useful for you to bring in for yourself as well. That willpower and not separation, but sovereignty and independence is what's coming through. So Bacano and Lagus and those, they tend to dissolve boundaries and go, oh, let's connect. And Uruz and Inguz say, let us stand in our sovereignty. And it's recognizing that you can hold both in the space, and that independence doesn't threaten the collaboration of Bacano and Inguz. There's something to play with there for you around the feminine and the masculine, and how you're inviting the masculine into your life there. Chen, popping up to share your rune. You have got Lagus. So I've already shared Lagus with Suzanne, but in your case, I would think of it as being, it's a very active tending phase. So we've got our Inguz rune that's there, the seed, it's planted, and it's saying your Inguz rune needs tending. So what energy can you give to those heart's desires that you hold, to those things that you want to bring forward? How can you channel more of your energy with your Lagus rune? And what I'm seeing within that might link in with, might be why you've come in this particular order. So Uruz is often a good channel of Lagus energy, so it holds the space for the Lagus energy to flow. So this Inguz seed is saying, I need some of that. So what the key for you will be, how do I channel my energy, my creative energy, my literally my physical and mental energy, in such a way that it feels held, that it doesn't feel hard. So I'm not going, I must push this watery energy with my hands towards the Inguz rune, because if you try to do that, it just falls through your fingers. So it's about creating containers, about creating spaces, rituals, habits, accountability. So, if there's something that I want to do and I'm not really sure, I know that I've been putting it off a little bit, I'm going to invite a friend to come around for the day and help me with it, or I'm going to set up somebody to say, I want to get this done. Can we have a check-in at the end of the day that I've done it? So it's creating containers for channeling your Lagu's energy is what's coming up. And I think that's why, just in my feed, often the order that you put them in gives me a few clues there. Esther, you have got Hagalaz for the week. So there is some real change making. Hagalaz and Inguz are both seed runes. So, Inguz is the seed that draws in and absorbs all of the energy in. It's very quiet and contained. And then, at the right moment, it explodes into life. Hagalaz explodes. That's what it does. It is the hail seed formed in the sky that then comes down and creates destruction to make way for the new. So it's a very different type of seed. Now, Inguz, if it popped its head up too quickly, would be destroyed by the energy of Hagalaz. But if it waits under the ground and Hagalaz does its work of clearing away all of the old growth and the old vegetation, that is past its best, then the new seeds can come up. So Hagalaz is the seed of the new. So for that, there is a sense of stepping into decisiveness, not being afraid of, chucking stuff away, making big decisions, embodying change, even if sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable, or people are like, whoa, you're not used to being like the whirlwind or the storm. So this is your invitation, this week, be the storm, Esther, is what it's saying. Lisa, you have Vunyo. Oh, Vunyo. So Vunyo actually comes just before Hagalaz. So again, it's interesting when these connections come up in the rune row. So Vunyo is the end of the first state, the first family of runes, and Hagalaz is the beginning of the next. And so Vunyo is a completion of that first phase. It's often like that. I think about it as being the moment when, as a child, maybe not everybody has this, but I think everyone has somewhere where they're just like, I'm just happy, I'm happy in this moment. And it can be very, very small things. I think about it with, I have a really, really old friend, and I often think about us playing at her house. And we used to play in her garden, and we used to play unicorns and things like that. And we also used to play, she had this really big front wall, and she had these big plinths on the top, and they didn't have anything on the top. And because we were children, we used to stand on top of each of the pillars, and then we would stand totally still and pretend to be statues, and people would walk past, and they would all be smiling, because we were young, and it was just funny, and we would just stand as still as we possibly could, and the sun would be coming down, and we'd be making the people happy as they walked past, and there was no toys or anything involved. It was just, look at these plinths, clearly they need statues on them, and we shall be them. It's that, it's those sorts of moments of play and happiness, and it's that sense of completion, and that when we have had that sense of belonging and safety, and we know that it's there, we trust that it's there, that's when Hagalaz comes in and goes, right, excellent, it's time to now break stuff and make you stronger. That's what it does, that's what its job is. So Vunyo is, I think, again, there's a sense of, I know I asked about doing a retrospective for the Gibo rune earlier, and I would suggest maybe for you, Lisa, not only making sure that you prioritise things that just make you blissfully happy, even if it's just for a few minutes. I'm going to go and stand in the sun right now. I could be doing loads of other things, but I'm going to go and stand in the sun. Or, whatever it is that makes you just go, oh, this is my happy place right now. I just want to be in my happy place. And it's recognising that when you are able to do that, you are also able to support others in doing it, because Vunyo is a rune of kin and belonging and fulfilment that is not just personal, it is also about the bonds that you have with others. You'll notice that my Vunyo moment was with a friend. So you can have Vunyo moments alone, but often it is either in connection with the sun, or in connection with your delicious cup of tea or delicious glass of wine, whichever you want to have. There's a moment of connection. So there is a piece there for me, Lisa, also for you, that I invite you into, of recognising, when have I provided that connection for others? When have I provided safety and belonging and security and comfort for others? And recognising that in doing that, you prepared them for uncertainty. You prepared them for the ability to face up to change and transformation and evolution. You know, and that's part of the gift that you offer. Diane, you have Algiz. Algiz on its side. Oh, interesting. So Algiz, obviously, when it's upright, the person, reaching up to the skies. Often when I see Algiz on its side, I see a footprint, like a footprint of a bird in the earth. But what I'm seeing for you is actually a swan flying across the sky with the wings out and the body, the long neck and the body. It's a swan or a goose maybe as well. And it's that wistfulness of, I wonder where that's going. You know, I always sort of think about that, and I look at them and I think, you know, particularly with geese, you know, the migrating geese, you know, they're off somewhere. It's amazing how the distance is that they travel. Whereas for swans, I'm saying this off the top of my head, I have no idea here. You know, they're in pairs, aren't they? They're sort of bonded in pairs. They don't fly in flocks in the same way, so they're more solitary, but they have a very close bond with their partner, or with their cygnets for the time they're together, rather than the geese who have these big flocks. And I'm seeing the Algazarine for you as being this swan that is flying, and you think that it's on its own. You see the sky and you think, oh, it's on its own, and then there's another swan just flying behind it, and it's there, and it's that connection between the two birds. It's equals. It's recognizing the presence of the divine in the people around you, the people with whom you share those intimate relationships. So it is that sense that maybe you're feeling alone because you're looking out over the horizon. Because I'm seeing that first one as being yours, looking out over the horizon, and there's this you know, sunset, and just it's really beautiful and a bit exciting. So, you know, where is it going? You know, you're both the swan and the person looking, and then it's recognizing that there is a companion there. You know, that companion is there. And again, I'm very much feeling that sense of, you know, there is a new journey. So this week just offers a little opportunity to do a little bit of reflection on going, how often have, you know, the gods or spirit, whatever it is, how often have they sent support in human form to me? Because I deserve it, you know, and they've done that for me. So it's recognizing that. So I hope that that's helpful for you, Diane. Suzanne is in raptures over Hargalaz there. Yes, we love Hargalaz. Felicity, you've got Bacano for Hannah and Tewaz for you. But they're lovely partner runes, aren't they, Bacano and Tewaz? We have the divine feminine, you know, here with our Bacano rune, or new beginnings, and the earth coming up, and protection and gentleness. But is it really gentleness, or is it just a very slow change? You know, the deep mysteries of the earth. And when we have the Tewaz rune, which I don't have here in my to hand immediately in my pack, but that's the, you know, it's the arrow and it's the sword and it's the sky gods, and it's sort of up high, and so there's a really quite sweet partnership going on there between the two of them. So Bacano for Hannah is, I think it's just about renewing that connection with the earth, and almost looking for how that's going to evolve, and saying, yes, you know, I know Hannah, and so I know that she's had a, you know, strong connection with her land and the earth for many years now. She works in that way, but it's really connecting in with what is new and different, and through doing that, recognizing what is new and different in her as well. So, you know, when you sort of go to places and you go, oh, that, you know, that tree has grown, or something's changed there, or, you know, this plant has changed in this way. And it's noticing those very subtle changes and recognizing that that is the case within us as well. And then I think that's an invitation into a deeper journey as well for Hannah, perhaps through that Inguz ring of a seed planting there, of exploring the presence of the divine feminine within her. It's the sense that I get through the course of the seasons. And again, it's about sovereignty, very much that sense of sovereignty coming through there. So it's about power and sovereignty, not just connection. You know, it's recognizing that sovereignty is required, and also recognizing, I was talking about that triangle right at the beginning of nature, sovereignty and connection. It's sort of saying all three of those are needed. So to Hannah, I would suggest to you, there is a recognition not just of your sovereignty, but also of your wildness. You know, that deep wild self that also, is not then necessarily the tender or the mother or the child. It's a little bit more red in tooth and claw, I feel. That may be why we had the Hagalaz one. And Felicity with the Tewaz rune. So this is this contrasts with the Inguz rune. So there might be I'm always feeling like an exit energy there with the Tewaz rune going on. No longer that, and moving. Literally like moving away and maybe cutting some ties is what I'm feeling with the Tewaz energy. Not necessarily knowing where you're going. I was talking to Diane about her Algiz rune and the swan and sort of seeing the horizon. The Tewaz rune is that sense of where the archer is shooting but has to use instinct to know where the arrow will land. It can't be done purely, we can't have a sort of map in the sky with geometry and that sort of thing. They know because of years and years of practice and knowledge and experience where the arrow needs to fly. So I would be looking at what ties do I need to cut, what do I need to move away from at this time. Perhaps similar to Hagalaz in some sense, that needs to clear away some stuff so that the new can come in. That's what I'm feeling there for you, Felicity. Darren, you have Bacano. So we have covered Bacano with Hannah. Let's see if anything else comes in for you. I think there's an invitation there, Darren, for you. It's that union between the Bacano and the Inguz rune coming together, and you can imagine that the Inguz rune sort of locks into the Bacano rune, and if you had a Bacano rune on either side, the Bacano rune becomes like a cushion supporting and holding. And I'm wondering if there's, I don't know, I've got a weird sense, tell me if I'm wrong, that we had a little bit of this last week or the week before. This sense of trusting that you are supported and knowing that that's part of the journey of the hero. So Inguz is the hero's journey. It's the hero Ing. It's divine ancestor. We've been talking about him as Frey. So it's considered to be Frey's actual name is Ing. His Frey was his name as Lord. He descends down into the earth. And in the earth he is transformed and changed. But he is nurtured at the same time by this Bacano rune. And it's recognising that the hero's journey isn't just that journey of independence and separation that we've been talking about. It's recognising that the Inguz rune and the Bacano rune, when they are together in this way, are both living their sovereign natures. Inguz in this sense is first the ability to sacrifice, and then the ability to receive comes within the Inguz rune. Bacano is the ability to be protected in the first instance, and then the ability to nurture and tend. And it's the two of them when they come together. So I think there's a recognition there. And again, I've said it's useful to do some reflection at this point, and perhaps for you think about those the triangles that I was talking about, the triangle of conditioning, separation and codependence, and connection, sovereignty and nature. And say, okay, how am I showing up? Am I on the hero's journey with Inguz? Am I on the protector journey with Bacano? How have these two runes, or these two ideas of being able to stand in sovereignty and be in your moment, just like, right now I need to be protected. Right now I need to be supported. Right now I am able to sacrifice. Right now I am able to protect and nurture. It's recognising where that might have shown up in your journey, and whether that was in a place that felt like, it felt good and empowering, and I felt strong and I was standing in my sovereignty, or whether it felt like actually I was doing those things because I've been conditioned to do them, and actually I wasn't okay sacrificing that much, or I wasn't okay being told that I wasn't ready, or that I needed to be protected in some way. It's looking at those things and saying, how can I stand more fully in my own sovereignty through that, using the Bacano rune, and I think also the Inguz rune as your places to go to look at them. So Sue, hello Sue, you have got it's lovely to see you, first appearance, welcome. So we had Urus. Who did we have Urus with? So many of you now. Dun, 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 dun. We had it right back at the beginning, didn't we? Urus. Was it with Marie? I want to say it was with Marie. So let's think about Urus for you. Oh yes, of course it was with Marie, because we were talking about the masculine, weren't we? So Urus here. So for you, I am feeling more a sense of, it's that Urus is inviting you into connection with it as the rune of the land, the rune of finding healing within your land and connecting to the land, not just in terms of the surface, you know, which is like the Bacano rune is often that rune of the surface and the green energy, like coming, and the life energy coming through from the dark depths of the what's the word that I'm looking for? Sort of fertile soil. You know, the plant matter that has composted down. That's very Bacano-y, and like cave spaces where there is air and water and, you know, life comes from it. Urus is the roan and roan. The roan is the stone and the rock and the bone. You can see I made roan out of that. The stone and the rock and the bone. So just doing things like looking at what soil type is my land, you know, and where, if you've lived in different places before, was it the same or different? It's a really interesting piece to do, and I've done it with a number of students before. Is just looking at, oh yeah, you know, actually I know for me, this is how it came about for me, that I was born on clay and now I live on sandy soil, and it took me quite a long time to realise that I needed to make I needed to connect with the sandy soil in a very different way to clay soil, and I didn't feel comfortable on the soil for a long time, and it's because I needed to connect with the bones of the land. So I think Urus is asking you to go on a journey with it, to explore it at a deeper level, and to recognise through doing that it's going to connect you so much more strongly into your own power, you know, into the power of your bones and your blood and your connection with the earth, and through doing that. So there's the, you know, the drum beat of the belly of the earth coming through with Urus, and the magics of rock and stone and bone. And you know, if you haven't done before, you can have a look at my YouTube video and do the journey with Urus for that. Yeah, it just feels as if the rune itself is speaking to you. Sometimes they come through as sort of initiators. Suzanne, you're saying Inguz is my Norni's gift. So yes, of course, you know, I've forgotten that it's a powerful rune for you anyway. So you know, that makes perfect sense. Cheryl is saying thank you. Marie's saying lots to think about. Esther, thank you as well. And Felicity, oh no, more decluttering. Yes, more decluttering, Felicity. Oh, here we've got an extra one. So we've got Troy. Hi, Troy. So you have got Yera. Yera, excuse me, I've just seen that Shelley said that I hopped over you. Apologies, Shelley. So with your Yera rune, there is a patience there. So whereas Inguz is like, it's the little seed, you know, it's the small energy that's down in the earth and is waiting that we can tend, and we can you know, tend an individual plant or tree, and we can see what will come through, and we can see sort of tangible results. Yera is the two halves of the rune split apart to make the year, you know, the winter and the summer. So you're going to be thinking on a bigger scale in some way. How is that feeling in around your sovereign identity and Bacano? I'm feeling as if for me it's Vetra is calling. So the two deities, they're called Suma and Vetra, and they mean summer and winter, and they circle each other. And there is a sense of the winter of Vetra almost saying, I'm not done, there's something that's needed before you can fully embrace the energies of summer. So there's some lesson or sorrow that needs to be acknowledged. So you'll notice that I asked a couple of people to go and do a retrospect. We looked at the Gibo rune, you know, for example. I think it was with Esther, and I was looking at, you know, how do you do that acknowledgement of the, you know, the gifts, what you've given, what you've received, to stand in your sovereign power with that. And I feel that for you, Troy, that's about looking back over. It might be the season of winter. It might have been the actual season of winter for you, but it might also be almost like a winter of the soul. And just doing some work to say, what was present for me, and have I fully acknowledged that and fully embodied that in my life at this point? Is there anything that I haven't fully released, or haven't fully grieved, or haven't fully accepted as a sort of part of my new reality, that I need to do before I can stand in my sovereign nature, and before the wheel, the Yarrow wheel, that big, the wheel of time, or the spiral, will move for me again. So there's a little sense that if you don't sort of deal with that now, you might get stuck. So I would have a look at what it might be that you, again, it's not necessarily about releasing, it's just about saying, I see that. Now I see it, and I sort of take it on board from my place of sovereignty. Wonderful. So Diane says, I need another listen. My dog went mad halfback playing with the ball. Well, maybe your dog is one of those accompanying spirits. So Shelley, you've got Taywaz, so I'm going to direct you to what I said for Felicity about the arrow, and that sense of what needs to be left behind, But I'm also getting that sense for you. It's that poise. So, sorry, I've got a really frog in my throat. So whereas for Felicity, I was seeing the Taywaz rune is shooting through the sky and moving and saying, what is it that might be hindering her arrow from flying free and true? For you, the Taywaz rune is centered. It's the column, the sort of Irminsul pillar, as it was often called, that brings that truth and that grace and that stillness and that center. There is a real sense for me that perhaps for you, through the course of this week, if you're able to take some time, almost like silent retreat time, not even time for journaling or thinking or doing review, as has been the case with some other people, but just of stillness. And it might actually be useful to use the Taywaz rune as your center. So if you do meditation, you could use the Taywaz rune and imagine the Taywaz rune sort of in front of you in that stillness, that calm and that peace and that poise. And just in your mind, just say the Taywaz rune's name, Taywaz, when you need to bring your thoughts back, so that any time your thoughts go off, you can just say Taywaz and bring it back to your Taywaz rune. I'm just looking for the Taywaz rune so I can hold it up for people. Here we go. There we go. So I want you to imagine it's like a silver pillar, and these are like wings that fold out to embrace the sky. In that sense, and the column channels that energy of the sky down into the earth. So it's very peaceful, centered, calm energies are quite different to Felicity's. It is still there's still a, whereas for Felicity it's about what do I shed for my arrow to fly. For you it's about how do I bring that center, how do I come back to center each time the thoughts go, So have a little try of that. Sue says, that makes perfect sense, thank you. I've not thought about the connection with different types of earth. And Shelley said, no problem. Good, wonderful. And it has been lovely to see everybody again. Happy bank holiday for those of you in the UK, or England at least. It might not be for everybody. Although it's Easter, isn't it? So probably. Have a wonderful week ahead. I look forward to seeing those of you who are in the inner circle for our meditation and embodiment session on Friday. I know that I've got a mastery circle this afternoon as well for those of you doing a mastery after awakening. Lots of opportunities to see people. A circle on Wednesday as well. So yay, lots of time to see everybody. And yes, if you are interested in what all of the planets are doing, because I can't cover all of those through Middle Earth readings. If you want that sense of, what are all the planets doing, and you want to be able to see ahead, don't forget that you can subscribe to Suna's Star Wheel. It's on the website www.meganrose.com. I'll post it in the box as well so you can find it. And then you get your monthly, here is what all of the planets are doing for the month ahead. You have a sacred play journal that you can use to do your symbol rites and to journal on what those planetary movements might mean for you. And I've got some meditations on there as well to support you in just deepening into your runes. So that is £45 for a whole year of getting all of your planetary movements in each sacred play journal each month. And if you are in the inner circle half space, you get that for half price, because there is a fabulous code available for you that you can use if you want to get your Suna Star Wheel subscription half price. So I think that is everything. It has been lovely to see all of you. Take care and see you very soon.